During when I was running for Senate in 2022, talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country.
It's going to be the same outcome. It's the same thing that Democrats should learn, Democrats in leadership should learn right now, that it doesn't matter if we want to find common ground.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies.
What happens when American populism collides with European governance? Just ask Keir Starmer, who found himself cornered by J.D. Vance's unexpected attack on UK speech restrictions.
Appearance at a conservative gathering outside Washington, linking the country's limits against hate speech to American troops stationed there.
But also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
The Labour leader's visible discomfort revealed everything voters need to know. As Vance declared that free speech is a huge issue in this country, cameras caught Starmer's telling reaction. The moment raises a crucial question many are afraid to ask. Are British citizens truly free to express themselves, or has the UK government crossed a line that even America cannot ignore?
Wants to have a different abortion policy from Ohio, then Ohio has to respect California and California has to respect Ohio.
And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video.
It's been incredibly clear that he doesn't support a national abortion ban. He wants abortion policy to be made by the states because he thinks, look, if you're not supporting it as the President of the United States, you fundamentally have to veto it.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly, that he would.
Did you know that in Britain today, a man was prosecuted for standing silently near an abortion clinic? This shocking case forms the centerpiece of Vance's attack on UK speech restrictions, and it's exposing a growing rift between American and British approaches to free expression. When J.D. Vance confronted Keir Starmer about Adam Smith-Connor, he wasn't just highlighting any case. Smith-Connor, a physiotherapist and Army veteran, was fined £100 for praying silently within a buffer zone around an abortion clinic in Bournemouth. His offense? Standing still with his back to the clinic while, according to his own testimony, praying for his son, who had been aborted over 2 decades earlier. Council officers approached him, questioned what he was doing, and when he admitted to praying silently about his abortion regret, they issued him a fixed penalty notice. This incident isn't isolated. Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, co-director of UK March for Life, has been arrested twice for silent prayer within buffer zones. During her first arrest, police officers questioned her about what she was thinking about while standing near a clinic. Let that sink in. British authorities essentially policing thought crimes. Her charges were dropped after widespread outcry, but the pattern remains disturbing.
He was Emmanuel Macroned by another world leader, Keir Starmer in this case, the Prime Minister of Great Britain.
Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right.
Vance's critique centers on these cases as evidence of Britain's declining commitment to free speech. During their exchange, Starmer visibly squirmed when Vance declared, "You're prosecuting people for silent prayer." In America, we believe in religious liberty. This direct confrontation left the British PM fumbling for a response, eventually resorting to the weak claim that we've had free speech for a very, very long time.
Want the federal government to focus on these big economic and immigration questions. Let the states figure out their own abortion policy.
Got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible.
What Starmer failed to address was the specific legislation at issue. The Public Order Act 2023 established buffer zones around abortion clinics where influencing anyone is prohibited. The act specifically includes prayer among its prohibited activities, alongside advice and persuasion about abortion services. The buffer zones extend 150 meters around clinics, creating spaces where certain forms of expression, including silent prayer, are criminalized. The competing narratives here couldn't be more stark.
Upon his fascist nonsense, upon the people, whether or not they try to find common ground or not. They could learn something.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time.
For defenders of the buffer zones, including Starmer's government, these are necessary protections for vulnerable women seeking health care. They argue that anti-abortion protesters have long used intimidation tactics, including filming women entering clinics, displaying graphic images, and verbally harassing patients. The buffer zones, they insist, simply ensure women can access legal medical services without facing a gauntlet of judgment. But critics like Vance see something far more sinister: government overreach into the realm of religious expression and thought. How can a democratic society justify punishing citizens for silent prayer?
But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do.
From an Emmanuel Macron, or a Keir Starmer in this case, who did the very same thing. He gave the Emmanuel Macron treatment to J.D. Vance.
The notion of authorities questioning someone about their private thoughts strikes many as Orwellian overreach. For American conservatives especially, these cases represent a cautionary tale about progressive governance gone too far.
The federal level, I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora,
Federal abortion ban came up in the debate this week, including the comments that you made here on this program.
This controversy has become a perfect flashpoint between American populism and European regulatory approaches. While European governance increasingly emphasizes balancing competing rights, in this case, religious expression versus access to health care, American political discourse, especially on the right, maintains an almost absolutist approach to free speech and religious liberty. Vance knows this difference resonates with his base, which views European governance as increasingly authoritarian on social issues. The technical details of the UK's Public Order Act reveal nuances that get lost in the political crossfire. The Act doesn't explicitly ban silent prayer. It prohibits acts that influence others seeking abortion services.
so many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships.
Alabama's going to make a different decision from California, and that's okay. We're a big country. We can disagree. The best way to actually facilitate us coming together.
But this is where implementation becomes controversial. When authorities determine that Smith-Connor's silent prayer constitutes influencing, they're making a subjective judgment about the impact of his presence and thoughts. What's particularly revealing is Starmer's discomfort during this exchange. As a former human rights lawyer, he should be well equipped to articulate the balance of competing rights at play. Instead, his defensive posture and vague appeals to Britain's free speech tradition exposed the political vulnerability of his position. He offered no substantive rebuttal to Vance's specific allegation about criminalizing prayer, leaving the impression that the American vice president-elect had landed a significant blow. So is the UK really criminalizing silent prayer, as Vance claims? The evidence suggests a complex reality. The law itself targets behaviors that interfere with access to abortion services. But its implementation has indeed resulted in authorities questioning, detaining, and fining individuals engaged in what appears to be purely internal religious expression.
But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
And you'll see. Anyway, here's the headline from the AP. Vance criticizes Germany's free speech laws in remarks to conservatives.
The issue isn't black and white. It's a clash between women's rights to access healthcare without intimidation and individuals' rights to religious expression, even in contested public spaces. The Starmer-Vance confrontation isn't merely a diplomatic hiccup, it's a harbinger of the ideological fault lines reshaping US-UK relations under Trump's second administration. What's truly at stake here is a fundamental divergence in how democracies balance competing rights. The UK public itself shows increasing division on these speech restrictions, particularly regarding abortion clinic buffer zones, revealing tensions between personal freedoms and collective protections.
Again, started attacking the free speech laws in the EU and the UK, which is not a part of the EU.
Security Conference, Vice President Vance condemned free speech violations in the UK, particularly. Could you respond? What is your...
This exchange follows a pattern we've seen before. Trump officials confronting European leaders over immigration and free speech issues as part of a strategic pivot towards supporting populist movements across Europe. The difference now is that Vance has elevated these disagreements to the diplomatic forefront. For Starmer and other European leaders, these challenges present an existential test. Can they articulate a coherent defense of their approach to regulated speech, or will American populist critiques undermine their domestic standing? As the Atlantic appears to widen ideologically, the question isn't just academic. It will determine whether the special relationship survives in any meaningful form or fractures under the weight of competing visions of what democracy should look like in the 21st century.